Let's take a look. This game was pure violence, and there was so many tactics and so little time. It was extremely interesting. So let's take a look. D4, D5, knight F3, C5, E3. Nothing extremely crazy yet. Usually, here in these positions, I like to play pure ugliness, in my opinion. It's alright. B3 here, normal. Just get into a kind of suiker. The problem here is that you haven't played E6, Now if you take, it's good for me. I do not have any problem with that. Like C takes, then I play E takes, bishop D2, knight D2, and usually knight D5 in the future. That's another way to play this position. So I don't think that's like nothing really crazy, and probably taking here on D4 is not that good either. Maybe bishop D4 is okay. Usually you want to play bishop d3, but with this bishop on g4 it's kind of annoying to have this pin here on the knight on f3. So I decided that no, I don't want to get into that. I want to play bishop e2 to stop you from getting any ideas. And now my plan has changed a little bit. My plan is now to play, now I have to define my plan, which should be something like this, and then try to push the pawn on c2. So nothing really crazy yet. Of course, it is kind of annoying to have this bishop on g4 and this bishop on e2, but on the other hand, well, whenever the bishop is on g4, then it is not on c8, which is something nice if you want to attack on the queen side. So, and this pawn on b7 gets a little bit weak, but on general terms, if bishop here is okay. So, castling, finishing my development, bishop d7, knight f6, knight d2, castling, rook c1. And now my idea is just to play c4, and try to get with these pawns here on the center, and that should be nice for me. Because usually people get really desperate when they have these pawns on d4 and on c4. It is really hard to play against that. And in this position, my pieces are really well situated, nothing really crazy. Your pieces are decently situated too, nothing really crazy yet. So a6, which I do not understand that much because playing b5 is not gonna be possible. So I don't like a6. Maybe something which makes more sense is to play like rook c8 and maybe, I don't know, b6 maybe, because the idea is to try to keep the center. But of course I always have this attack here, which might be a little annoying. I do believe that rook c8 and then b6 trying to keep the center makes sense, but as your bishop is not on c8, then you cannot play bishop d7. So, not quite sure yet in this position. I don't like this position for black pieces. I think it's harder to play, but I do not believe that there is something extremely crazy yet. Maybe some plans like knight d4 might work in some positions, and this bishop might come here and play knight d4. But the problem is that the knight on c6 one more time is not on d7, and you cannot bring your knight here to try to keep this knight on e4, which is usually something cool in these positions. So your knight on c6 is not bad, but it can go to the 7 f6 and keep the knight on e4. So a6, I don't like that move for you. h3, just winning a tempo here and giving some space to my king in the future if I need it. c4, and then here of course you cannot just play rook b8 here. I don't remember what you played because you're losing the pawn on c5, so that's not good. Have to be really careful with these pawns. That's why some people decide to take on d4 and c4 because they do not want to be calculating constantly these exchanges, which might be really annoying to calculate all the time. Like every single move you have to be careful of these exchanges, and that's something annoying. Of course, as my center is well defended, then I do not have to think that much about it because I know that there are many pieces defending the center. I have all my pieces kind of defending here, and it's really hard for one of these pawns to be hanging in any position. But on the other hand, these pawns here are not that well protected as these ones, at least not the pawn on c5. So that's something that you have to see. Rook b8, horrible move. D takes, well, I don't like this either for your pieces here, like rook b8. I don't understand this move. What are you doing with this rook b8? It's kind of obvious that you're not gonna play b5 easily. So I don't like rook b8. Maybe maybe even queen c7 and then try to bring your rooks towards the center or something. I don't know. If you're gonna take here, take. give away the center, but try to do something active. This rook b8, I don't like that move. It doesn't seem active in my mind. But we're gonna see some crazy tactics in the future, so let's take a look here. A4, the idea is, evidently I do not want to play b5 just because I am annoying, you know. I am the kind of person who you do not want to deal with because I'll stop your plans. So if you're planning to play b5, then I don't want you to do that. And I play a4 just, even if b5 is not good for you, I'm not quite sure yet, because I might take on d5, on c5 or something, and then the same idea is happening here with your bishop or something. I don't know, I'm just speculating here. But even though if it's not gonna work and this is your plan, I want to stop you from doing so because I'm annoying. So that's cool when you're annoying and the other guy can't do the things that he has in mind. That's something that you want to do in your games, and that's cool. So you're stopping the other guy from doing what he wants. C takes, E takes, and now see this center here is really good. It is not hard. It is not hard to defend yet. I was thinking of playing Queen b6 here. Probably it is more active than the move that you played, because you played Knight b4. I think Queen b6 makes sense to a certain extent because you're getting your queen out of this square here where it is interfering with your rooks, but also see how you lost the tempo here and the rook on b8 is gonna do nothing. So maybe Queen b6 you could have done that before or something without playing rook b8 and getting into a more or less similar position but with a tempo to move your rook towards the center. So that's why you do not want to play rook b8. Also, here in this position, I guess Queen b6 makes sense. You're touching my bishop here, and I cannot play Queen b3 because I don't want to trade pieces in this position because I want to attack. So I don't want to play Queen b3, and Queen c2 seems kinda silly since you have bishop g6 annoying. Also rook b1, well, I don't like that one because you have bishop g6. Queen b6 is annoying, and I agree with that. Maybe bishop a1, and even though I do not like to do that move, might work, I guess, just defending my bishop, and now I have threats of doing something like this in the future. So Queen b6 probably better. Probably better. Also, what else do we have here? Queen b6. Yeah, you do not have a lot to do here in this position. I do not see many good plans for you. See how everything seems to be okay, but like your pieces are out and whatever, but my center is really strong. So you're gonna have to fight a lot here. Knight b4 is a move that I do not like for you because your knight looks really nice here, really cute, but it's doing nothing. So I don't know. What are you attacking with your knight on b4? That's a good question, right? Do not move your knight to b4 just because it looks cool. I realized that when I moved it. So yeah, sure, it is cool if I wanted to play c5. You know, if I wanted to play c5, then it is cool. Or if I ever played c5, it is cool because then you have this move here. But oh, you see, you have to notice that before, and you have a lot of time here. You have 3 minutes almost, and moving your knight towards b4 makes sense when you want to stop this pawn structure here. Usually when there are hanging pawns, you want to move your pawn of d5 actually, because that's what gives you more space. You do not want to, and especially when there is a pawn on e6, because if you play c5, then look how all your pieces are gonna defend all of these things, right? So my idea here is to play d5. I guess knight b4, the only good side of knight d4 is that to a certain extent it is stopping me from doing this, which is my plan. I want to play d5 in the future, but to do so I need to get my pieces out and I need to get my pieces active. Now my pieces are in like solid positions, but it is time for me to do something about them. I do not want them to be solid forever, because if you get to trade a lot of pieces, then this pawn structure is not gonna hold itself, and that might be a problem for me in the future. So I want to get active here. Queen b3, good move, just getting my queen to a better position here on b3, giving some squares to the queen here, and also helping my pieces to push d5, which I think is okay. Also here I am playing rook fd1, and it is hard for you to play this position. I mean, literally, you're getting yourself in a position where your plans are really hard to play. Like, even to elaborate a plan in this position is hard, because, wow, it's difficult to do that. Like literally this bishop on h5 doesn't seem natural. Maybe bishop g6 with the idea of just getting your pieces in a little bit better square. Yeah, in this position it's not nice. So this rook on b8 is stopping you from playing something characteristic of this position, which is instead of having the bishop on e7 is to play bishop d6, bishop b8, queen c7, and the rook on c8, which is something that I have seen before that works like decently. Let's say something stupid like h4 for example here, or like bishop d6 for example, h4, rook c8. Let's say something stupid here, g3, bishop b8, something weird like this, and then you have something like this position, right? This is more or less one of the plans that I have seen before against these positions, and if that was your plan, then you weren't executing it because you needed to do that. Like if you want to play bishop d6 and then bishop b8, then your rook is kind of annoying. Maybe play rook c8 and bishop d6. Of course this cannot be before maybe, yeah, that could be a nice plan, but the rook on b8 is not gonna fly. So make sure you move your rook to c8, bishop d6, get your bishop active or something, then play bishop b8, and maybe even not queen c7, because if you do so, when I play d5, I'm taking on f6 and creating damage in your f6, like creating damage in your pawn structure after you take on f6. So maybe queen e7 then, and bringing the rooks. But see how with the bishop on b8, and the rook on c8, and the queen on e7, and your rook on d8, the position looks better for me. At least like in my eyes, it looks better for your pieces. Like for example, that will be a nice plan here. Maybe it's one of the things that are coming to my mind, but it's hard to tell these things, you know, and that's why a lot of people die against the Sugar Turd, because they remain playing normal moves and suddenly they see that they do not have a space, and when they do not have a space, they start to push pawns and then they die. You know, that's something to have into account. You just have to have a plan here to get active your pieces quickly, because otherwise it is gonna be really hard to play. So queen b3, a5. Okay, you're consolidating this. I didn't know what to do here. I realized that I was wasting my time, so I just made a move. Oh, you see here, a decent plan is rook c8, bishop d6, bishop b8, queen e7, rook d8. That's what I was saying, right? But this is hard to find. You have to be accustomed to this kind of positions to kind of see this kind of plan. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best way to proceed, but that's an idea, which is leading you to something. Because if you play a5, then okay, you're consolidating the knight on b4, but I don't know, that's not nice. I mean, yeah, the knight on b4 is cool, but what are you gonna do, right? So here you're doing almost anything, like queen c7, which is okay, but I will prefer to play rook c8. Here, bringing my rooks to the action, because my queen is already in this line, which is not that bad for my queen. But if I go to c7, then I get into edge race and into all kind of weird things when I play d5, and I don't like queen c7 here. Extremely dangerous for you. I might have played d5 in this position probably, which I didn't. Yeah, I probably d5 here, extremely annoying, you know. I thought about d5 in this position, but I thought that I wanted to play knight d5, which is another way to play these positions too, and I wanted to get in even more space. So, but even then, I think d5 should be extremely annoying because I am taking on e6, and if you take then, there is a lot of debilities, and d5 is extremely dangerous. You're helping me here because you're putting yourself in a position where you're gonna have to face edge race, so that's not good for you. So, knight d5, I think this move is okay. Just getting more pieces into the center, playing knight f3 probably, and this knight on e5 is going to be extremely annoying. Also, this knight on e5 is defending the pawn on c4, and when I move my knight to f3, see how everything is defended by all my pieces. Like literally the center is defended by everyone, right? Of course the bishop is going to disappear, but everyone is doing something about the center, and that's nice for me. So that's something for you to consider here. See how my pieces are getting into a more or less harmonious position, and yours are doing okay, like they are out, but they are doing nothing. So that's something to say. Bishop takes c2. This bishop probably was your best piece, I believe, because if you play them bishop g6 is kind of annoying, a little bit at least. I do not want to trade this knight for this bishop on g6. And this bishop on g6 is stopping me from getting too crazy because there are some knight c2s, knight d3, which might be annoying in the future. I do believe that this bishop on e2 is yeah, it's okay, but I don't know if I would want to trade this bishop on h5 for the bishop on e2. You did so. Probably not a mistake, but it's kind of helping my position. So rook takes e2, bishop d6, and see how even though your bishop is on d6 now, after f4, then that doesn't make any sense. So bad move, bishop d6 here, also helping me to play c5 in certain positions. I am about to play d5, and everything is happening here. It's really hard to play. So f4, preparing my position even more to play d5, and getting all my pieces to the best squares. And if you trade here, then I trade, and no, that's not good for you, because the center is too much. This knight has to go back, and everything is coming. Knight e4, for example, might be a threat to go to d6. There are so many different things happening now. Rook fd8, probably the move that you should have done before, or probably rook c7, or probably getting your queen out of this really dangerous position. But rook d8, well, knight f3. All my pieces are getting into a decent position. I'm maneuvering here. I'm playing a strategical one more time. Knight d7, because it's really hard to do anything in this position. You maybe want to trade some pieces. And now d5. And d5 is dangerous, because I'm taking on e6, because if you take here, then I might take with my bishop, because if I take with my pawn here, then I'm pushing d6 or taking on e6, because if you want to take here, then this doesn't look nice for you. Knight c5 in this position. Wow, that's a hard move to find, you know. Knight c5. If knight c5, I guess I just can go back and play like queen d1 or queen d1. And knight c5 seems better than what you did. f6, let's see. f6, knight c5, queen d1, and f6 you're saying here. Didn't see this one coming, but this is hard to tell in a 5-minute game. What's that? Is that what Stockfish is saying? Yes. Oh, you see, this is what the Stockfish is saying. I'm not quite sure, but I guess in this position, for you to find these moves, it's really hard, and even for me to find this move, and for every human to find this knight c5, because everything seems to be collapsing here. So I guess knight c5 is really good, because it is getting your position active after f6, and then the pawn f4 is falling, which I didn't see. But whoa, it's really hard to find this position when you to find that move when you have 1 minute in your clock. So knight c5 is extremely good move probably, but I do not see how to refute that knight c5. I guess just waiting for you to take on I have to wait just for you to take on f4, and suddenly your position is all defended. But I didn't see that one coming. So well, that's the computer answer here. We're humans, and that didn't happen. And if you found that move, whoa, dude, I would be extremely surprised. So knight takes e5 you played, which seems more normal, because knight c5 is a little bit harder to see in this position. Knight takes e5, f takes e5, and now everything is dark for your position apparently. I was thinking if I had to take with my bishop here, so that if you take here, I take with my pawn, and then I have the same position but without this bishop, which is kind of annoying after it's trapped here. But I wasn't that sure about it, because I didn't want to trade pieces at the same time, so there were so many things happening. Pawn takes, bishop c5 check. I thought, well, king h1, and now if you take on d5, things were gonna be really complicated here. I thought that if you take here, maybe I had some moves like this one, and everything was gonna be pinned, and that's dangerous. And of course, this bishop you can defend it with b6. I think you had to take this on d4 in this position, like e takes e4 instead of bishop b6, which doesn't make any sense. Maybe e takes e4, and after e takes e4, c takes e4. For example, knight takes e4. That should be good for you. But bishop b6 makes no sense. E takes, c takes. I wasn't even thinking now. Oh, you see, you have to be thinking all the time. I was just making move. That's not gonna fly. I know that maybe we didn't have a lot of time here, but we have to be thinking all the time. So making moves just by making moves makes no sense. Like here we have 1 minute, I guess, yeah, this is time to start to make moves faster. But even then, see how psychologically I really got annoyed how I played and I didn't even concentrate. Oh, that's really hard. Also, something that you have to see is that if you're playing these positions, you do not have a lot of space and you do not have a lot of moves, and everything seems to go against your position, then it's really hard to play. Like, for example, here in this position, I wouldn't be surprised that you didn't find any moves, because yeah, this is hard to play, you know, this is really hard to play. So I guess d6, attacking here and getting my pieces even more active. This move is like this is here is getting a pass pawn, of course, also is pushing even more the pawns. This queen c5, well, I wasn't expecting that queen c5. Maybe the funny thing is that I say to myself, not play queen c5. You know, this is something that happens a lot when we're calculating things, you know. Usually, for example, let's say in this position, we're thinking, like when we do not see something that might happen is that, let's say that you're calculating e takes e4, c takes e4, whatever, and then you find that there is something that is not gonna fly, right? Like there is a move which is not gonna work. And after calculating all of these things, suddenly you say, no, you know what, that's not gonna fly, that's not gonna work. Maybe I have to play something else, bishop a7 or h6 or something, and that's just compulsive. And that's why we lose a lot of games, actually, sometimes, because we're calculating something, it takes a lot of time, then we see that it's not gonna work, and suddenly, when we find out that it's not gonna work, we decide to play something randomly. So that's not good. Be careful with that, you know. And of course, here you weren't thinking, and well, bishop d6, queen c5, and that's annoying. Bishop d4, queen c6, c5, and now everything is coming, you know, winter is coming. I made this move because I wanted to have some sacrifices here, so b6 and knight takes e6, which is, whoa, I'm not sure. I don't believe that this move might be wrong even, but I think this is so hard to answer that, wow, I didn't see queen e6. Queen takes e6, of course that's really hard to play, and yeah, that's actually really annoying. So f takes, queen takes e6, and then this is just really hard to play. I'm not quite sure what the stockfish says here. Let's take a look. I am curious now. It says slight advantage, just like plus 0.3. So you see, b takes c5. Oh yeah, 0 now, and now plus 0.5. But even if it is equal, it is harder for you to play this position, and you have 30 seconds, so that's not good for you. So rook e8, b stake, queen f7, everything is coming, plus 3 out of one move, because now e6 is coming, and then e7, and then queen f8, for example, or something. That's really hard. Also, after e6, and I am taking on g7. Also, let's say queen d5. Well, I thought this queen d5, I didn't like that move for you. I thought, well, I can do whatever here, I guess. And I play e6, because then even if you take on d4, the threats of d7, e7 are extremely dangerous, and that's really hard to stop. So even though you are 2 pieces ahead here, I thought of course I had just like 10 seconds. Even if you have two pieces of advantage here, your pieces are doing nothing. Like literally, we are equal in material, and I'm even a rook up, because my rooks are active, and this rook on b8 is out. Like, statically, you're winning 2 pieces right now, but of course, I was thinking that I didn't want to take this bishop on a7, but dynamically, it is really hard to play this position. So, now e6, knight c6, okay, giant mistake here, because then you're just side. The only way to play this position was queen take d4, and now everything is falling apart after d7, which I was thinking, d7 is a move that I was thinking to play, or e7 maybe after, and I didn't want to take on a7, but I thought, well, I'm gonna play d7, I'm gonna see where do we go now, and it's really hard to defend, because rooks are really bad defenders against these pawn structures when they are in the 7th rank. Like, these hanging pawns are extremely hard to defend with rooks, and that's really bad for you. So here, general advices. First of all, think. Think it is important. Do not leave your pawn on c5 hanging as you did before, and also Be thinking constantly. Do not stop thinking. Do not panic, or do not just be do not be on focus, because if you are like that, then you're gonna lose. That's not gonna fly. So concentration all the time, that's something important. Of course, that's obvious. You might say, yeah, I know that. Whoa, what an bias. But it is something important, right, to be considering that, even though it seems obvious. And here, before, generate a plan one more time. The problem that you are having in these positions is that whenever you do not find yourself in an open position and you find yourself a little bit down, and this is something that I have seen after a couple of games and after looking at your games before, it is getting really hard to play. Like whenever you are not in an open position and things are a little bit strategical, then everything seems to fall apart for you. You do not find the moves and things are really hard to play. So that's something that you have to consider, whenever you do not find yourself in a position where you do not have a lot of lines open and your pieces are not active, you panic. The position gets bad for you. This is something that I have seen repeatedly. Even though you say, well, I like open positions, some people like me play closed positions. I am a guy who play closed, semi-open, semi-closed positions and all this bullshit, which is really boring, but eventually you find your pieces down and you lose, like you're not gonna see that here I'm winning or something, or that we have crazy tactics in this position in the move 8, right? But in the move 16 or the move 20, your pieces make no sense and then I'm winning, So that's a byproduct of not comprehending a strategy here, and that's something that you have to work on. A strategy, really important. You do not find a plan in this position because you do not, of course this is split, so we sometimes do not find the plans, but if you find that in classical positions you're facing the same problem, which I don't know, then that's something that you have to work on. Because I do believe that if you get to understand a strategy better, you're probably gonna play much better chess and you'll see your rating skyrocketing, because I do believe that in terms of tactics you're doing decently, and in terms of strategy you have a lot of problems. So that's what I will recommend you to do.